Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about the second and third Chocky serials from 1985 and 1986, respectively. The original Chocky series was about 12-year-old schoolboy Matthew, who was contacted by the eponymous alien intelligence Chocky, and who then experienced some strange changes in his behaviour and mental abilities as a result. You could probably write an article about how it's a metaphor for puberty if you wanted. But whereas the original serial was very much about Matthew and his personal experience, the second, Chocky's Children, deals much more with how would the powers that be react if they found out about an alien contact, as a shadowy and unspecified cabal puts Matthew under surveillance. Now, Matthew himself has no idea of this, of course, and he merrily trots off on a holiday at his aunt's in the countryside, even when he encounters his aunt's neighbour, Albertine, who possesses uncanny mathematical skill, and who lives on a property that has a windmill that Matthew has been drawing for months, despite never seeing it before. He's far from unsettled by all of this. In fact, the discovery, of an emergent psychic link between himself and Albertine immediately turns his thoughts to Chocky. But of course, he's not the only one who draws this connection. The cabal is watching. And then in the third serial, Matthew takes a back seat, actually, even though, as you'll see, he's kind of on the cover of the DVD set. Albertine becomes the focal character, and the serial covers her efforts to unlock the secrets of limitless cosmic energy while facing the threat of, another evil conspiracy, actually. So that's the two serials, and a brief summary of what's involved with them. Unlike the first Chocky serial, which was directly adapted from a John Wyndham novel, the sequels are original to TV. Doctor Who alumnus Anthony Reid, who these days is an author in the print realm, and I believe quite successful, developed the plotline using the characters Wyndham has created. So let's talk about how he did. So I think he gets off to a good start. Chocky's Children quickly establishes itself both as a continuation of the story, but also as a much more tense and menace. It establishes a greater sense of tension and menace than the original serial. The first episode establishes, Chocky's visit may have had unexpected effects on Matthew's mind, and also obviously the existence of the secret cabal that has him under surveillance. But it does this, even though it moves more towards being a thriller than a family drama focused story like the original was, Chocky's Children still feels like a natural extension and evolution of the original story. It's just expanding kind of the scope of what it's looking at. While it's a bit darker and more intense than the original, which I think is probably suitable given that the primary audience would have been kids who saw the first one, and they're now all a year older, I think it's got the right balance of familiarity and change to feel fresh without being a jarring departure from what had come before. I think overall it's a well-judged execution of how do I do a sequel that's not just a complete retread, and that feels connected but also feels sufficiently different to be worth watching for itself. And I think, in that respect, Chocky's Children does a very good job. Well done, Mr. Reid. Which is not to say that it's without its flaws. I think the pacing of Chocky's Children is a little bit off. The end feels rushed, and I feel like maybe they could have cut a few sequences earlier on, trimmed them down, given the climax more room to breathe. And then you may have noticed that my summary of Series 3, Chocky's Challenge, was much shorter. When I talked about the plot, it was a much shorter summary than my summary of Chocky's Children. And that's because it's basically a lackluster rehash of the same story, except the pacing is even wonkier, and the evil conspiracy is, frankly, it's so inept that it's only a threat at all because the script continually makes the supposedly brilliant Albertine and Chocky act in ways that are extremely naive and foolish. In writing the final series, they seem to have forgotten the basic rule that heroes are defined by their adversaries. If the bad guys are incompetent and your protagonists are still struggling to beat them, it basically means your good guys are also incompetent, and that makes it hard to root for them. It's a big flaw in Chocky's Challenge and really undermines it. And it's a shame that that's kind of how, this trio of serials ends. But one thing, I wanted to end on a positive note because, despite everything, I have very fond memories of Chocky from my childhood, and I enjoyed Chocky's Children. I wanted to end on a positive note. So one of my favourite things about Chocky's Children is Matthew's aunt. She has honed her politeness into an extremely efficient weapon and can batter people into submission through the sheer force of her amiability and clear expectation that she will receive the same consideration in return. There are several fun scenes of that nature in the second series, and I think it's a real shame that, because of the shift to make Albertine a focal character, which is, I don't have a problem with, but it's a real shame that one of the consequences of that is that she, the aunt, is absent from the final series. I think she would have been a breath of fresh air. It's a shame she wasn't Albertine's aunt, basically. She would have been a breath of fresh air in the rather stolid Series 3, and I think would have made it easier for me to enjoy. So that was one thing. I wanted to end on a bit of a positive for it. So that's Chocky's Challenge and Chocky's Children, or Chocky's Children and Chocky's Challenge, to put them in the correct order, or Chocky 2 and 3, as I've written them there. Next time, Laputa, Castle in the Sky, or Laputa. I'm not sure how you would pronounce that in the original Japanese. But yes, Castle in the Sky, as it's known in the US. It's a 1986 Studio Ghibli film. Ghibli have made some cracking movies. This is one of them. So we'll be talking about that next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.